Hey everyone, RogueGold here, and today I've got, you guessed it, another Year 6 Season 2 build video. Now, I know I've done a lot of these so far this season, honestly more than I usually care to do, but that is simply because of how many new or newly empowered build options there are because of the balancing changes that have been made, and how many of them are actually good. Oftentimes things can look good on paper, but in practice they're only so-so. But with this update, it seems like every time I log in, I throw together a new build that someone recommended me or I had in my backlog of things to try, and it is shredding through enemies like there's no tomorrow. So in order to cut down on just how many build videos we're throwing out, today you're getting a 3-for-1 special. Now part of the reason why I wanted to include these 3 builds in one video is that most of them are not necessarily new ideas or combinations. In fact, 2 of the loadouts I'm showing off today I already had videos out on from months or years ago. They were still saved in my loadouts. But because of just how strong these builds have become this season, I felt I would be remiss to not spotlight and show you all their new potential and power levels. So that's exactly what we're going to do here. We're going to go down the list 1, 2, 3, quickly go over each build's composition, talk about what changes and buffs it's received to get to this point, and yeah, should be a good time. As I always like to say in these, everything you're about to see is a template, set up for my own preferences in gameplay and playstyle, but any modifications or changes you would be inclined to make is always encouraged, and I'd love to hear about any particular changes you think you might make down in the comments below. If you do enjoy the video and you want to stay locked in for all future builds, breakdowns, news updates, any and everything for the Division 2, then I hope you'll consider clicking that subscribe button if you're not already. We'd love to have you around. Without further ado, however, let's get into these builds. To kick things off, we've got Ongoing Directive. Now, I have been a big fan of this set ever since they reworked it back in Season 10, I want to say it was. It is a fantastic team damage buff option, but the way I built it, I always liked leaning into the solo damage potential, and all of the group benefit was just a bonus. And so, fortunately for me, that is exactly the element of the set that got buffed with this season. But that's not even where the buffs end. So this is the loadout that you're seeing on screen. It is 100% exactly the same as I made it back in 2022, I want to say. But yeah, this combo specifically has been double buffed, and you can feel the difference in the gameplay. So firstly, the Sadist weapon talent in its perfected version got buffed by 10 and 15% respectively. That grants you bonus damage to enemies who are bleeding, which is of course what Ongoing Directive focuses on. And so I run both the perfected talent on the Carnage named Negev LMG, and then regular Sadist on a Vector 9mm. As for Ongoing Directive itself, the chest piece amplification talent, which used to grant your own bonus hollow point damage an additional 15% in lethality, now grants an extra 30% damage. It's wild. So in totality, the bonuses are very noticeable. For the build itself, you'll see I've got the Coyote's Mask exotic and then a Seska backpack with the Wicked talent for even more damage upon bleed application, 6 red cores, crit chance and damage across all rolls and mods. And yeah, if you want a strong solo damage and team support option, this will serve you better than ever.
The target. Nice. Target neutralized. You got the target.
Next up, we've got to take a look at the buffed version of Perfect Killer. Now, prior to this season, the Killer weapon talent granted you an additional 40% critical hit damage for 10 seconds upon killing an enemy with a crit. The perfected version of that on the Dark Winter Vector took that up to 50%. But now, as of TU22, regular Killer grants you 70% crit damage, and the perfect version grants you 90%. A 40% increase for the Dark Winter. That is an insane buff. And as you'll see, it translates directly into the gameplay. The loadout I'm using is one that I've used and shown here on the channel before, but there are a couple of different ways you could set this up that I'll get into. But we've got 4 pieces of the Hunter's Fury gear set in order to capitalize on SMG and close range damage. Then I've got 1 piece of the Sokolov brand on my chest piece with Obliterate as my talent, and the Memento exotic backpack, which excels in run and gun as well as solo play. Now like I said, this is not the only option here. You could very well go for 2 Sokolov and run something like Bloodsucker and Intimidate, you could throw in a Sombra branded piece instead. There's plenty of options, tons of way that people prefer to run their Hunter's Fury. All I'm saying here is that you need to try out the buffed Dark Winter, no question. However you choose to set up your build, just make sure you're getting as close to the 60% crit chance cap as you can to maximize killer's potential. Okay, and then finally, we get to the Pestilence. If you haven't heard the rumors, as of TU22, the Pesty is cracked. It is simply a god tier weapon. Now what they did was give it a triple buff. Now its talent and the values on there are all still the same. However, it got its base damage raised moderately, a small bump to its reload speed, as well as 300 additional rate of fire. That is where the power spike here is coming from. And as you'll see, it makes this gun a monster on almost any loadout. That being said, there are a ton of different combinations that you could run the Pestilence with, all as valid as the last. Some like Striker, some prefer ongoing Directive, tons of options. I chose to go for a high-end based build, and I think this works phenomenally. The one core tenet I recommend you follow is leaning more into base damage rather than crit, as the Pestilence's stacks increase in lethality from base damage. So because of that, I've got 3 pieces of the Langmo brand for that 3-piece punch of 30% LMG damage. This includes the named Backbone backpack with perfect unstoppable force, so that we're getting a 35% damage increase at max stacks. Contractor's gloves, because, duh, we're using an LMG. 1 piece of Walker and Harris, just for that extra little bit of weapon damage. And then I've thrown in the new exotic holster, the Centurion Scabbard. Now you've likely also been hearing about this thing as well. It is exceptionally good, and it just empowers the Pestilence that much more. I typically will just swap to my pistol and then back to the Pesty to rotate through the buffs. This will also auto-reload a weapon for the mag size increase buff, so that you don't have to waste those precious seconds on an extended LMG reload. And yeah, altogether, this setup just mows through people. I have put the RogueGold spin on it by running 2 blue cores and Unbreakable on my chest. This is simply because I'm a lunatic and have to play aggressively, but many will prefer to do 6 reds and run glass cannon on the chest piece for maximum damage. That is completely viable as well, so feel free to experiment with what you'd like best.
Incoming hostiles detected.
And there you have it, my friends. Those are 3 builds that I think you all need to witness and tinker with as of the Division 2's latest season. I hope you all enjoyed this kind of roundup style video. Figured that it would be a bit more consumable since we've been doing so many build videos these past 2 weeks. But what can I say? There are just so many solid options to try out right now. I would love to get your guys' thoughts on not only the 3 builds shown here, certainly if you're trying something similar, then let me know how you're setting it up, but beyond just these specific items, what has your go-to loadout been for TU22 now that we're into it a little bit? As I said, there were so many buffs, so many changes, so many new possibilities, so let me know what you're running with. That is going to do it for me today, my friends. Thank you all so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one. RogueGold. Ow.